Okay, thanks, Todd. I think we'll call this meeting to order. And everyone has a copy of the agenda. We'll go to, is there anyone, I think we're all here, so there's no no one excused from the meeting. Adoption of the minutes. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes from the previous meeting of February 24th? And if not, a motion to adopt the minutes would be in order. Councillor Chrisman, thank you. All in favor of adopting the minutes of the previous meeting? That's carried. Thank you. Are there any post-agenda items that need to be added? Seeing none, a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Kopp, all in favor of accepting the agenda as presented? That's carried. Thank you. Question period or notices of motion. Are there any? Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move along. We do have a public hearing commencing at 11:30. So we'll move down to, and also a presentation from STARS, which will be virtual at 11 o'clock, which I think means we can move down to item number 10, administrative business. Right, Matt? Appointment of a county assessor. Who is presenting on that one?
I can take that one for Lane.
Sure, thanks.
All right, so our assessor is a designated officer position that requires the formal appointment of council through an approved resolution. So we're looking today for a motion from council to change the official appointment of the county's assessor from Benchmark Assessment Consultants Incorporated to Kevin Halstead, who is now an employee of the county. He is our senior assessor. So we brought that previously contracted service in-house.
Sorry, are there any questions with regard to this item, or someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Johnson, Hawley, please. Or a question, or did you have a question?
Yeah, it seems like a pretty straightforward thing, but in the request it said that it was neutral. But he's coming from, let's see, that when a company does it, it takes the income, divides it up between labor, benefits, taxes, profits, etc.
And could you just pull that mic a little closer, or I don't know if I'm having...
How's that?
That's better, thanks.
All right. It's the walls gone that's making the difference. That's all on the walls. So anyways, if we're paying now at the same rate, it seems like if a corporation is doing it and at a profit, now we've got an employee, it feels like maybe it should be a bit of a cost savings. I'm just curious as to what the deal is there.
Yeah, so you will see a cost savings. I think when I ran the numbers, you're around 40,000 to the good.
That's a lot better than neutral.
Any other questions? If not, Holly, you're prepared to make a motion?
Yes, I was going to make a motion that the official appointment of the county's assessor is changed from Benchmark Assessment Consultants, Inc. to Kevin Halstead.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 10.2, Rural Municipalities of Alberta. Our spring convention is happening next week, and there are a list of resolutions that we probably need to review, I guess, eh? Matt, are you comfortable to take us through those, or?
Yeah, I'll make an assumption that council has had an opportunity to read through the resolutions, and I won't dwell on many of these for very long, but let's start right at the top. Resolution 1-22S, resolution for a more equitable funding model for municipalities, submitted by the MD of Smoky River. And maybe I'll open it to councillors first to express an opinion, if any, on this, and then I'll add my comments.
Alan, please, go ahead.
I wonder if this is going to be advantageous to our County of Newell. And I wonder if it will have any effect on the MSI projected delegations that were supposed to go to Newell. I wonder if it has any effect on that.
Yeah, I think in terms of this resolution, how it reads, they're asking the government to introduce the local government fiscal framework, which is going to replace the MSI starting in 2023. And they're asking for the allocation formula to be based on equalized assessment per kilometer of road maintained. I think it will be important to understand what maintained road is. I could imagine some municipalities potentially gaming the system, and there's some roads we might want to maintain once a year and add kilometers to our list of roads maintained. And I think this might be premature. My understanding is that the provincial government is going to engage municipalities in a conversation about what the funding formula should look like. I like the idea that they are bringing infrastructure into the equation, but roads are only one piece of the infrastructure puzzle. Bridges are very important to the County of Newell with all the irrigation we have here, and I'd hate to see a formula that also doesn't include bridges. You also have, you're one of the top municipalities in terms of kilometers of water line that you have in the ground. I'd like to see water lines. So I think it's maybe a little simplistic, the motion that Smoky River has proposed. Moving in the right direction, bringing infrastructure into the equation, but I don't think you want to limit it to open road maintained.
So I imagine there's opportunity for us to speak to those concerns in the discussion around the resolution, because it will come to the floor. So what's a reasonable approach to this? If council's agreeable to it, could you put some notes together for us on exactly what you just said, Matt? Because I think that's good background to have prepared when we discuss this, either formally or informally with people at the RMA convention, right? Is that reasonable? Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have direction on this?
Yeah, I do agree that that resolution does need to mention exactly the things that Matt has said. Roads is simplifying this way too much, and it's much more diverse, especially in the County of Newell here. Yeah, so.
Anyone else? If not, we'll move along, right?
All right, Resolution 2-22S, negative impact of carbon tax on rural Albertans. I think you all probably logged hundreds of kilometers getting here, and you'll log hundreds of kilometers getting home. And both the federal and provincial government, thank you for your contribution through the excise tax and the carbon tax in the cost of your fuel here. So, I mean, this one I think is, in the absence of better language, a no-brainer for those of us in rural Alberta. I think you pay a disproportionate share of carbon tax, and it really does place a burden on us.
Yeah, we're about to see that in a bigger way than we have felt it to date, but it's coming. And I'd agree. Anyone else have any perspective they want to raise? If not, we'll carry on.
All right, the next one on the list, Resolution 3-22S, attraction and retention of veterinarians to rural veterinary practice. This is a standing item on Joint Services Committee agenda. It's garnering a lot of conversation. It's a big issue. Anything that can support our rural ranchers and also our rural small animal owners, because that's where a lot of the rub is locally for us. I think that is benefit to you. They have a pretty long-winded resolution here. I won't read through it all, but I think in general, getting veterinarians attracted to the region is a benefit.
I think specifically they're asking to double the number of spaces for veterinarians at the Calgary institution, which is significant, but that would probably make a difference. I know that when the University of Calgary Veterinary Medicine School went into place, it was specifically to improve the access to education for rural veterinarians. So that's probably the most specific part of that resolution, right, is the doubling of education spaces. Holly, go ahead.
An interesting point is UFC has now gone away completely from face-to-face interviews. They're only doing the MCATs, and that's a real disadvantage. They're not taking into all the rural life that goes with it and just going strictly on academics. So it's actually, in my opinion, a real downside. It's probably been excellent vets who have not made the MCAT test, regardless of their background, that they come from rural, they're rural kids, so that's a real downside. I mean, it's part of this, but just as a point of reference.
Yeah, thank you, Holly. Adina?
Well, and I just wanted to point out, because I've worked with Gord on this, number 6 there, the participation of the RMA in a committee pursuing recruitment, that would be a good fit for rural communities is something that he's focusing on too. So not everybody that gets in would be a small animal vet in Calgary sort of thing.
And I think to Holly's, I mean, that kind of fits to Holly's point too. And again, I know at the implementation of U of C vet school, that dynamic was very specific. I mean, it was through cattle producers, but I was on an advisory committee supporting the initiative, and it was very specific. And I know some people who've gone through that institution simply because of those dynamics. It wasn't just academic based. It was the fit and experience. So yeah, thank you. Pretty straightforward otherwise, I guess, eh?
Next resolution is 4-22S, continued support for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Alberta. We've had several conversations around the horseshoe about RCMP. I know many of us have attended, if you want to call them information sessions or lack of information sessions on the issue. The thing that I think is interesting in this resolution, they refer to some statistics. One recent public survey reporting 70% opposition to the replacement of the RCMP and 80% satisfaction with current RCMP policing. I mean, we've got excellent RCMP members in our community, do an excellent job. What I think is interesting about this item is that the province is still very motivated to investigate it. So it might be early to try to put that one to bed, but the resolution that the RMA requests that the government of Alberta not create an Alberta provincial police force.
And then there are some follow-up ones too, right? Or is that a different? You're on that. Oh, I'm on the next one. I'm sorry. Yeah. Holly, go ahead. Sorry, I was...
Yeah, I just don't feel I can actually even make an accurate call if they want to keep the RCMP or not. I'm not in favor of voting for this just because I just don't know anything. I've listened, but I don't feel I have a real sense of it. I mean, this whole thing with the convoy, and that makes you rethink a lot of things differently, how things were handled, not necessarily in Ottawa, but the destruction of those excavators by the RCMP in Coots was bizarre. So you just kind of go, I don't know what the best answer is anymore.
Thanks, Holly. Neil?
Well, at the last RMA
conference, they had the poll at the end of the meeting on the police. I don't think there was a person that stood up in support of a provincial police force. It was almost unanimous to keep the RCMP, unless that sentiment has changed. RME is totally, this motion's just going to fly through. I expect so too, but I guess I'm with Holly on, I don't think we have enough information. And the fact that I don't understand the economics of it, and I think it's been a poorly communicated initiative that was pushed through somehow thinking that it would be supported. And if it's a good idea, they need to back up and re-educate people on some of this, because I don't think any of us have anything but a patriotic sense of appreciation for the RCMP. That's not the issue, but it's become the issue, and I think it's misplaced because there are many other local jurisdiction police forces, and there's a reason for that. And I think we've heard a little bit of that, but not conclusively, I don't think. Adina, please.
Well, it definitely doesn't make sense financially, but I think this is more, in my opinion, this is more of a political move on the government's part, because the RCMP are run federally, and so he's kind of using this against the federal government. To what end, I'm not sure yet, but to me it just seems like that's more of what's going on here.
Good point. Dan, please, and then
My thoughts on that are, if the province wants so badly to have this, and we saw that with Minister Madhu, and he was very emotional about it. It's a non-starter for him. This is happening, and that's the deal. If they want, if they want that so badly, but yet they won't give us any information, there's, from my end, there's no trust there. I don't. If they want it really bad and they show us this is why we want it really bad, this is the math, this is why it's going to be better, then I could trust it. But they won't tell us why. So I'm losing trust on them.
thanks, Kelly, and then Ellen, and then Jeff, or Greg.
Yeah, and for me, it's further download onto the communities. If you look into the plan, they're suggesting local boards to operate the local police, and so again, it's a download where right now we contract a service, and we are receiving that service, and we've heard from the RCMP that they're open to tightening up that service. So what better provider can you have when they're open to change?
Good. Ellen, please.
Yeah, and of course they changed Shandro. Minister Shandro is now Justice Minister, so it might be a little bit different. Manu is to a different portfolio, I believe.
Great. Greg, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it comes down to what the costing is. We haven't seen some real numbers yet as far as what the cost will be for having a provincial police versus having the RCMP. I'd like to see that. Neither side has really approached that, I don't think anyway. It seems like if we did want to go with our own police force in Alberta, I think we should keep it regionally if it's viable. Keep it the way it is now, but if we're thinking our own police force in our area, we should just do it. And the Alberta government wants to do it Alberta wide. No, leave it to the regions. Like if us and Brooks say wanted to have a regional police force, we do that. And if we want to stay with the RCMP, then we should do that. So it should be our decision on that. And also, it really does seem it's political. There's a definite discourse between the provincial government and the federal government, rightly so. But this whole, I think Minister Madhu was, I think it's personal. I think it's political is the reason behind this.
Neil, thanks, Greg.
Yeah, personally, I would vote for this motion, but I'm just taking into account what everybody else is saying. I think we should just remain neutral on this one. I wouldn't want to vote for this motion because there's too many negative comments coming out against it, even though I support it.
Okay, that's a good point. We probably can further our discussion if new information comes forward to us next week, I suppose. Yeah.
Resolution 5-22S, Rural Crime Watch App Pilot Project. This one gets pretty granular what they're looking for in terms of support from the province. I mean, addressing rural crime or looking for creative ways to reduce rural crime, I think is a great thing. I mean, you might even have some of our staff at the county who'd be willing to, if the government was going to grant fund a project to develop an app. We've got some pretty keen minds down in your IT department there with Constantine in GIS and Roberta with her crew. So I'm not sure how they settled on looking at 10 pilot projects, and I'm not sure if municipalities are the right place to be developing apps. There's some that maybe have better capabilities than others, but yeah, you guys can kick that one around whether you think that's worth your time supporting.
Anyone have any comments? I guess we can develop our position further next week and we maybe hear some more discussion around it, eh? Fair enough? Okay.
All right, Resolution 6-22S, Responsiveness of Service Delivery by Quasi-Independent Agencies in Alberta. That's a mouthful, so we're targeting AHS, AUC, and the NRCB. I think the issue here is that we've got unelected boards making some pretty big decisions, and I think across the province, the service level is not where rural municipalities would like to see it. So therefore be it resolved that the RMA requests that the Government of Alberta review the continued use of unelected quasi-independent agencies for the administration and delivery of essential public services, with the results of the review published for public examination.
So basically more information coming forward on the issue. It's hard to disagree with that, I think, isn't it? Okay.
Resolution 7-22S, Helicopter Emergency Medical Services, HEMS report funding recommendations. If you've had a chance to review this, I think it's kind of a natural fit where this council is on supporting HEMS with the recent increase in funding to HALO. The resolution's looking for minimum of 50% of an air ambulance provider's operating costs to be supported by the province, as was recommended in the HEMS report.
Thanks. Holly, please.
I remember right from reading the HEMS report that it was, some people felt it was skewed heavily towards stars and didn't give a fair shake to HALO or HERO. So if we're voting in favor of this, is that, I mean, I guess it's better than what HALO has now, but is that sufficient? Who would be able to answer that question?
The background information in the resolution speaks to HALO as well as, I think up north it's HERO, is the one up there.
Any other comment? Oh, Lynette, please.
This all kind of goes hand in hand with the resolution from before, that if things were monitored a little closer and there was a little bit more accountability to the upstream as well as the downstream of what they're doing, then this would fall into that, right? If all of that was squared up, this would too, but I think mentioning that this also needs attention, I think, is a good thing too.
Okay, thank you. Neil?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a good thing, and it ties into the motion we made with HALO, where our funding increases if the province picks up 50%. So I think it's a natural, just, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Kelly, go ahead, please.
Given the date of the HEMS review, I'm surprised that there wasn't anything in the budget. Timing, and they spent tons of money on that report, and it told them. And so the provincial government basically blocked what the review said. So it's unfortunate, and I'm in favor of this resolution.
Anne, please.
I think, we need to support that kind of thing. If they're going to do reviews, spend big money on reviews, and then just ignore them all the time, we need to hold their feet to the fire. You did a review, it gave you recommendations, follow up, and we absolutely need to support that stuff.
Okay. Holly, please, one more.
Maybe my question wasn't clear. I wasn't saying that we shouldn't fund them, just is this funding good enough for what HALO and HERO, I can't remember the HEMS. I didn't review the whole HEMS report again, because I did read it before. But I guess doing this is better than what they've got. Now, maybe not enough for HALO and HERO, but it's a good start. Is that where we're at? Okay.
All right, so this next one's completely out of my wheelhouse. Resolution 8-22S, reversing changes to aerodome standards implemented by Transport Canada. The background information within it talks about some of the changes that have been made and the impact that has on reducing accessibility for aircraft. So I think in some of our remote communities, this is creating a barrier. If you can make an argument for removing barriers, that's kind of the Coles notes that I got. You might want to get behind it, but it's pretty technical for me, the aerodomes.
Okay, I think so too. And that's it, eh?
One more.
One more? Oh, sorry about that. Yes, one more.
Last one here may no longer be relevant. COVID-19 mandates and vaccine passports. Be it resolved that the RMA advocate to the governments of Alberta and Canada for the elimination of all COVID-19 mandates and the elimination of vaccine passports in the QR code database.
Okay, Ellen, please, and then Holly.
I wouldn't be surprised if they would withdraw this one, because it's a bit not valid anymore, right? Not relevant.
Except that it refers to the Government of Canada as well, and I think there hasn't been any movement there. Holly, please.
The Government of Alberta has not gotten rid of the QR code databases. They've refused to get rid of that. They want to keep it all, so it actually is still quite relevant. It's a issue of the right to keep that information, or is that personal information they should not be keeping? So I'd be on the side it's personal information, and they should ditch the whole program, but that's where I come from.
My initial reaction is the same as it is now, and it is, oh, come on already. Give it up. I'm not in support of that. Just get over it.
Neil?
Yeah, I agree with Dan totally on that. We had 85% vaccination rates. This isn't county business or RMA business. And I'm not in favor of that motion.
I would... Holly, please.
Explain, Neil, why you're not in favor of dumping a database. I don't see where you're coming from.
It has no effect on me. I could care less what they do with the database. I think it's an overrated issue, and it's done.
Dan?
The government has all of your personal information. All of it. They're not going to get rid of all of your personal information. That's just one bit of your personal information and one bit of the government. They're keeping all your personal information. You're not going to convince them to get rid of all of it.
Kelly?
Yeah, but you have to include the whole resolution, and it's more than just the database. It's talking about travel between countries. It's talking about all kinds of things. So, It's way more than just database.
And it relates specifically to the COVID situation that we've seen in the last 2 years, and I think that at our last meeting, we have discussed the impact on employment and the fact that we've lost workers in southern Alberta even because of the mandates. And I think that personally I'm in support of this resolution because I think that normalizing things is a complex situation because at some level the longer range impacts probably have gone further than was anticipated when some things were implemented. Anyway, we'll have an opportunity to review this more next week at the time, and I imagine we'll probably hear some discussion about it. The thing that I think is specific, that it is advocating to the Government of Canada, and I have made some comments to post the budget in some discussions around response to the budget where employment was raised, that this factor can have quite an impact on certain segments of our workforce, and that's a concern for the economy. Never mind the reasons for it. We need to take a holistic view of this kind of stuff from my perspective, and it shouldn't just be from a single angle of potential health benefits, I think. So anyway. Right. Okay, we are, I'll move to 11.1. Cole Steinley is here. Would you take the chair, please? You've got a report for us on NRSC.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Reeve and councillors. I appreciate you allowing me to give my report as per usual every month. If you have a copy of it, it looks pretty short and sweet, but of course from the time I write it to the time I present it, sometimes there's some additions, and that's the case again. I'll start off with the Hamlet distribution and wastewater systems. Every year by the end of February we have to submit our annual reports to Alberta Environment and Parks. It's a pretty long process for our operations supervisor, and he worked pretty hard in the new year to get that all completed. So we have 16 water systems that we report on and 5 wastewater systems. So that's all been submitted to Alberta Environment. Before the deadline, everything looked good, so that was taken care of on behalf of the county. We can start with the hamlet of Rolling Hills. So that is an ongoing process that has plagued us for years and years and years. We've had 2 leaks in the last week. Starting on March the 5th, we had a valve that needed replacing. Some bolts had corroded and the valve itself was leaking, so dug down, replaced the bolts, tightened it up, everything was good. As we speak right now, there's a crew from Brooks Asphalt fixing a leak at the fire hall property in Rolling Hills, just off of the highway. It's a service line issue. They haven't exactly pinpointed the last time I talked to them, so they're currently excavating and trying to find the source of that leak right now, but it's on the service line that feeds the fire hall in Rolling Hills. So when that's finished up by next month, I'll give a report on that and how everything went, but it should be fairly straightforward. Once they find it, we'll fix it and everything will be back to normal. So hopefully no outages or contraventions or anything like that will be as part of that. We also had another one. We had a leak when I was gone out of country a couple weeks ago. Over in the Castles area, just about a mile west of Highway 36 at 15.4 and 19.0. there again, it was just a service line, no interruptions. They dug down, fixed it. It was a broken fuse joint. All that is fusible pipe, HDPE pipe, so it was just a fuse that had on a directional drilling location where they had directionally drilled. So they fixed that, and it's back to normal. There was no contraventions or anything that had to be called into Alberta Environment, so it went smoothly, and it's back in service as well. And as we can see, nothing to report for on the wastewater side other than the reports being submitted to Alberta Environment. And then in-house at NRSC, I'm sure most of you all know already, but I just thought I'd bring it up in case someone didn't. But effective April 4th, 2022, I'll be taking over as General Manager of Regional Services. So that's new.
Congratulations on
Thank you very
behalf of
much.
Council. Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And if there's any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Holly, please.
Not that I've been around very long yet, but it seems Rolling Hills is like a leak central. Do you think when it was put in, they didn't put the pipes together well? Like, what do you think of the causes of the Rolling Hills? Oh, were you involved in that?
So just to kind of give you some background on it, when I have to look at plans for whenever we do have a leak and looking at the whole system, the plans are from 1979, so all the work is, everything that's under the ground in Rolling Hills is 40 years or older. So it's more or less reached end of life. It's getting close to that. So especially since we're not dealing with the hardware that we're using, modern day epoxies and powder coating and stainless steel, stuff like that. So things corrode, things degrade when they're underground. So we're dealing with that. And then what we're seeing also is it's also made out of fusible pipe, and we're seeing a lot of these fuse joints fail after the 40, 50 year mark kind of thing. So that's what we're dealing with a lot. And yeah, so it's definitely in need of an overhaul, but that's where we're sitting right now.
Thanks. Go ahead, Kelly. Thank you.
So I'm not sure, Cole, I think this might be directed to the councillor from the community. Is there a Hamlet Advisory Committee in Rolling Hills?
There sure is. We had a meeting on Tuesday night.
Okay. So has revamping those underground lines ever been discussed? Because we have history in going into hamlets, i.e. Tilly, Scandia, and fixing those underground services, but we have to have the community on board, right? So that might be a conversation at your next one.
Yeah, it hasn't been brought up yet.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yes. And I'm going to ask a question just because I suppose there's a few of us that haven't been around the circle as many times here. But what is the process for exactly that circumstance? Is it a matter of the hamlet requesting the improvement, or is it a matter of the operator of the service indicating that it needs to be done, and what the time frame is going to be?
So we've had our crew here at the county working hard on asset management plans, and so this is a key question in an asset management plan: is what level of service do we expect the system out in Rolling Hills to provide, and at what time do you change and upgrade your level of service? So right now the level of service is every once in a while you're going to have a disruption because we have a leak, or in spring when we have some deluge of rain, their current sewer system sometimes gets overwhelmed. If they can live with it and it's cost effective, maybe that's all right. But at a certain point, having 2 breaks in a week gets pretty expensive. I just popped up a loan calculator, and I've got Mark trying to pull an old estimate for replacing infrastructure in Rolling Hills. At some point, it's going to make more sense to replace the system, upgrade it. It's at the end of its useful life. So that should be kind of top of mind for council is, how are we going to approach these things typically in the past we've looked at getting grant funding, and that's covered off about 75% of the cost of infrastructure upgrades in our hamlets, and we put the other 25% on the users in the hamlet, and we fund that through a local improvement tax over time.
Okay, thank you. So you're basically on it and monitoring it. It's like knees and hips and any other replaceable parts. It's a matter of priority.
Yeah, and Mark could probably speak to this. It's been a number of years since we completed our infrastructure master plans for each of the hamlets, and it might be a good time to start revisiting some of those and giving them a good refresh. I mean, that stuff's never fun because it always comes with a price tag that everybody feels is more burdensome than they can bear, but at a certain point, you got to pull the trigger and keep your community viable.
Oh, thank you. I think that's good information in terms of procedure for us, or at least for me at least. Holly, please.
Just a curiosity question here, Matt. When there is a break and they have to fix in the community, is that charged back to the community? Just because in Scandia, all the pipes are redone and people are all excited about it until they got the bill after, and like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that. So I'm just kind of wondering how that works out.
In budget, we do allow for repairs and maintenance. I'm going to venture to guess that Rolling Hills will probably blow the repairs and maintenance budget from time to time, but in any given year you might be over or under, but over time we try and average those things out. So specifically to answer your question, no, we don't send a specific bill for each break back, but we do have those numbers inform our estimates going into budget, and then that informs what we charge for utility rates. And we know currently our utility rates are not sufficient to cover the operating budget for all of our systems.
The pipes that are failing now are 40 or 50 years old. The stuff that you would have put into Scandia, what would be the life expectancy of those ones? Like, has that increased from what we were doing in 1979?
Yes, there are better technologies out there. We used a whole different system. In Rolling Hills, back 40, 50 years ago, they decided to use HDP, which is exactly the same type of pipe, or very similar to what you have in the County of Newell Water Project. It's easy to install. It's not huge diameter stuff, and it's fusible, so you can make it. It's a little easier to work with right off the hop. The stuff that you're talking about in Scandia, that's a little different. It's butt jointed kind of together. It's rated for higher pressures, that kind of thing. So, and then you use service lines after that, whereas it's basically like that. But I would assume that your overall life is probably in about the 50-year range. I think that's about as max. But some of your valve stuff like that, like I said, it's powder coated, it's epoxied, it's stainless steel hardware, things like that, which are going to obviously last a little longer as well. So even though you estimate them to be about the 50-year lifespan, you'll probably expect it to shoot past that just because of the technology changes.
I'll give you everything you need to know, and then some. No. With respect to water, wastewater, so in 2012, the department commissioned an infrastructure master plan to be completed for Rolling Hills. In that, from the recommendations, there was $164,000 worth of water main looping and stuff, because there are dead ends and things like that don't help for the best quality of water and system operation. On top of that, as Cole has alluded, the wastewater system is basically an HDP pipe that's fused together. Each individual property has a septic tank that has two cells in it, one for solids and fluids, and then the fluids roll over, right? And then they have their own pump discharge in that to put into what was formerly known as a pressurized sewer system. It's still pressurized in that regard. However, with the new installation of lift station, forget when that was, 2013, 2014, we open-ended that to be a gravity system just outside of the lift station. And to move them out of that system, where there are also some failures and stuff that occur from time to time, it's about $4.7 million. The feedback from community engagement session is we're a community of fixed income residents and we don't have the money. And that's where we sit. County councils of past have had the debate as to what we do with the road infrastructure in the hamlet, which we work diligently to keep it in a fair state of condition, because I don't want to see us go in there to rebuild roads when everything below that nothing anybody sees but needs is at a point of some type of failure sometime in the future because of its age. Cole's right, you've got HDP and HDPE pipe in there, some of that 50, 75, 100, 150 years. The technology, even though some of it's been installed since the 70s, it's still going the process of being identified as to what its true life expectancy is. A number of years ago, read a report, condition assessment from PVC pipe that was installed in Edmonton. I believe it was 1979. It was one of the first pieces of PVC installed in Canada. And they dug it up in the late 90s or early 2000s, expecting it to be deformed and have some kind of breakdown of material. They actually found the water line to have a thin film build up inside of it, which everybody knows, even your garden hose will have that over time. And that was the only issue with the pipe. So is it infinite? Could be, but then you're relying that it was installed 100% correctly, that there is no pipe defect that wasn't detected before it was installed, and those are some of the things. Historically, some of our PVC pipe, we found that they've been buried and a rock has made it into the backfill, and through natural movement of soils and everything, that's what has caused some failures and things. Fused pipe sometimes can have a break, just like a weld breaks on a flat deck or a piece of equipment, right? Those are the things, but because it's buried, it's not easily detectable or readily known, and we don't just go digging around in our roads to see what things are like. A break happens, you dig it up, you investigate it, you put it back as best you possibly can. But that's really where the community engagement went with the hamlet of Rolling Hills. The water system, and it's strictly a potable water distribution for water for drinking consumption only. It is not tied to a fire suppression system whatsoever. The clear well doesn't have the capacity for fire suppression. That is tied off of a completely different system, which is a raw water irrigation system. So there are some expensive improvements that need to be done there, and generally I'd say the system works well, but is it the best for the long-term and viability of the community? Well, that's where we've had the question put back to the community, and at some point we're going to have to do something. So.
Thanks, Mark. Is there any further questions with regard to this? Cole, please. Yeah.
I have just a little bit to add to that. So as Mark alluded, it is a low-pressure system. It's the only one in the county. Everything else for sewer in every community is gravity. So that in itself, there's some issues with that. So this $4.7 million there was also a part where they looked into just replacing part of it, which was, I think, 2.3, if memory serves. This is going back to 2012, so you might bear with me if my memory isn't 100%. But what you find with that is you'll have a little bit of solids carryover, even though it separates at each individual's house. So when you have solids carried over and it's in a closed low-pressure system, you'll get some H2S because the organic matter will break down. So hydrogen sulfide is extremely corrosive. So we've seen that in the past. We have a brand new lift station, but you're seeing some degradation there because of the H2S. It'll eat off a padlock for instance, on the the can of the lift station in less than a year. So that's what kind of environment you're dealing with. So the longer you have that low pressure system there, you're also having other issues with your newer systems because of it. So 4.7 is just the wastewater side. You're looking at probably more than that for replacing your whole entire potable water system. So it's not a small bill at all.
Okay, thanks, Cole. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you again for your report, and again, congratulations on your position, and we look forward to working with you.
Me as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Mark, can you get us done by 11?
Depends on your questions.
They're always unpredictable, so
Shouldn't be smart with my employer, right? But everybody's got the report. Municipal enforcement, kind of business as usual. You can see the warnings and tickets. Obviously, officers were out following the most recent snow event, and just really educating residents on their roles, responsibilities in snow removal and snow from their property. Keeping it on their property is one of the key things. Other than that, the supervisor did attend the AACPO conference and, of course, received some valuable training and or recertification training while he is at that. One of the key things being radio communications, so you're already talking provincial police force, RCMP and stuff. Currently, we are not capable of talking directly through the AFRAX radios to the RCMP. And that is a matter of the RCMP and their control over their radio system and not allowing our emergency services in. That extends to sheriffs, to community peace officers, and others of the like. Operations, weather was pretty good there for a while with grader operators, so we were grading roads. Never done that in my entire career here at Newell, grading roads through the winter season, but that's kind of weather that we've had. They continued with efforts on vegetation management, and we've also been dealing with the recent snowfall event and whatnot. Truck drivers continue with the stockpile program, hauling from the gem or the ballast pit to the rolling hill stockpile. We're trying to alleviate the pressure off of the Steveville gravel pit due to its life expectancy, and in a way that's what we're trying to do there. Annual equipment tendering, project tendering remains in progress. Some of that's been in front of council where it's needed to be. And our seasonal labor applicants have been interviewed for the one vacancy, and the offer has been placed and it has been accepted, so we're in good standing for the year. Additionally, Kinbrook Connection Pathway Partnership, we have an agenda item today that I'll speak to later, and CNWP Phase 2 registrations were just above 180 as of end of day yesterday, out of the 732, if my recollection is correct. We have some requests for proposals in preparation for professional engineering services for some paved roads and stuff to basically review them and come up with what the solution is to complete upgrading and preventative maintenance for the preservation of those surfaces moving forward as their life expectancy comes to an end. Rolling Hills truck parking lot finally received approval from Alberta Transportation after having verbal discussion with them. And we also have some bridge file work that's ongoing and in place. And then we do continue to pursue our lean certifications with our staff members to ensure that we're finding those efficiencies throughout our work day and benefiting our taxpayers and reducing overall costs and becoming more efficient. So, any questions?
Thanks, Mark. Are there questions? Holly?
So you already downsized one grader operator earlier this year, am I right? And you've now lost one that wasn't part of your planning? Can you...
Yeah, no, because resignations can come at any time. So for council's reassurance, and this is not widely known by staff, so it's going to get said today, we're looking at all opportunities. So I've asked Terry to put a request for tender out to find if there are any local companies that are willing to do a contracted service to fill that gap for the long term. And if there is nothing competitive with what our internal costs are, then we will look at going internal with it again.
Don't, all kinds of greater up, yeah, no.
Have you watched the Quick Dick McDick video on YouTube? Because that's a great one.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions? Anybody else? Thanks, Mark. Appreciate the report.
Just a motion for the reports is all I'll remind.
A motion to accept the report. Thank you, Ellen. All in favor, please indicate. It's carried. Thanks. In good time. Pardon. You want to tackle the council? We got stars at 11. Yeah, we got stars at 11.
If we can get through calcium, we'll let Terry go so he can get on with other business, and I can come back later on in the day. But if there's a number of questions from council,
yeah,
then
if we can do this quick, I'm good with it.
I can do it in 4 minutes. He'll hit me.
Okay. Go ahead, thanks.
Anyway, it's kind of just an annual thing where I come to council and we propose calcium to you guys at where the county pays for it. Typically in the past, we look at areas that have lots of traffic on and where we have to do a little bit more than usual maintenance just to keep our maintenance costs down. Also in the past, we had our haul roads. We used to call them our haul roads. So where Mark explained there, where we typically haul in the wintertime or during the summertime, we'll haul from stockpiles or gravel pits and haul into communities. We put calcium about 100 meters in front of all the residents in there. Last year we went through and changed the policy to remove that section of it, where we are not putting it in front of anybody's house on the haul roads anymore. We kind of spread out haul roads, have changed a bit, so we did change that up a little bit. That was, I guess, I go back a little bit further. We did spend about 3 years, so in 2018 to 2020, we looked at all the county paid routes there, and our initiative was to get rid of all of it if we could, or minimize the amount of it out there. So that process took about 3 years. We got rid of about 66 kilometers out of the 100 kilometers that the county used to pay for. So about 66%, and a reduction, of course, the nice benefit about it is runoff was it we actually reduced our cost by about $300,000 a year. So this haul route was just the final follow-up to completely get rid of all the calcium put down in front of people's houses. We've been a big initiative to actually move to user pay. So that being said, we have a residential program which will be kicking off here anytime, where if you want calcium in front of your place, you come in and do an application. We give you up to 300 meters of it, and we subsidize it at 1/3, 2/3. So landlord pays 2/3, we pay 1/3. So anyway, I sent out maps with you. These are pretty much identical to what I've been doing, other than the costs that we've knocked off. A little bit of tweaking for operations out there. We did add, so I lengthened out a few intersections and removed a few, but basically for operations to keep efficient for us and stuff where we didn't have to go and do it because we could maintain it with grading. We do it. A little bit of a dynamic. It does change from year to year depending on traffic and stuff going on there. So yeah, that's it in a really quick nutshell, I guess. Basically what I do is just ask for here that if you go through, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to ask them. Approve the dust abatement treatment plans as presented. If you guys have any changes, we can do that or reject it. So.
Please.
I have received a complaint about the timing of the calcium. So they felt that they were always, well, it was so late in the season. So you need some information on how you decide the timing and the routes and all those kinds of things.
So that used to be a really common conception, and I think some people still have it in their minds. When I first started, we used to run crew, and we would do it about 2.5, 3 months. If things went sideways, I mean, people would be getting calcium in August. Since then, we shortened the program down. We actually run 2 crews. We typically want to start middle of June, and last year we were done in 2 weeks or less. I can actually say easily this year that we will be done in 2 weeks or less again, unless we have some, and it goes pretty quick. I always wait till, well, there's lots of stuff that can, what?
We want rain.
Well, see, and With calcium, we've always moved till the rains are gone, right? And June traditionally is our rainiest month statistically in there. So once the rains are good, we get some good moisture in the roads, we let the calcium break up, we don't have to deal with dust. If we put it down when the road conditions are nice, we get a year out of calcium. Generally, a lot of it, we get a good year out of it. A lot of counties do it twice a year. If they get it to August or something like that, they're happy. But just on crews' advice and stuff that we've been putting it down for 20 years. They're good at it. We got a really good program. We pack it. There's a process behind it. We get fairly good results. I know we do. A good year. And that's a project, and keeping our costs low, right?
Okay, thank you. Lynette, please, and then Dan.
I was just curious on the costing. It was 1/3, 2/3, but has any of this gone up now the way things are?
No, our costs had set and scheduled fees. We've been doing a good job of keeping our costs low. So the cost to us for putting it down is $460 a meter. So 8 meters wide for running meters, $460 a meter. And the cost to residents is roughly $3. I think it's $2.99. We should advertise it as $2.99 like Walmart and everybody. But no, and our cost hasn't changed this year. I suspect next year we might have to hold on a little bit because stuff's going up. I can't predict, but same as last year.
Mark, you had
Terry, can you just advise council as when our contract with Cortec expires, because that's when prices are probably subject to change because we're locked in with their unit rates.
Yeah, so we are in our last year of our 3-year program. I am holding on to the table because our product comes from north of Edmonton, and you know there's a lot of trucking in there. I suspect I'm going to be getting a phone call, and there will be a little bit there will be some concerns that their trucking costs are going to increase significantly. They did it when diesel fuel to them was probably 60, 70 cents, and they probably were gambling on maybe up to $1. But I'm prepared to get that phone call, and I'm guessing it's going to happen like any other people that get these offer these type of services, especially when they involve a lot of trucking.
Dan, you had a question?
Nice and simple question. Were the changes last year done at a detriment to the county, and are these changes going to be a detriment? Or are we going to see the same service levels with no issues?
So we did the 3-year changes. We took last year off. So our last change was done 2 years ago. So last year I came to council, basically said we are going to keep our calcium program status quo. So we run 2 years with all the changes. A lot of it was feedback to councillors and ourselves and complaints. It was fairly low. So this one here, there might be a little bit of grief, but we're removing so little of it that I'll tell you in the fall. I'll give you an exact answer.
Thanks, Terry. Ellen, please.
Just curious, Millicent is not really a hamlet anymore. The roads were sort of closed. How come that much calcium there?
It's still designated a hamlet through Alberta Municipal Affairs, I believe. So based on our policy and designation of hamlets, that's how we've kind of looked at things where we have those through roads.
But does anybody live there?
Yes, there are still three to four houses immediate to the road, right, and then a few more to the east.
Okay, thank you. Dan, please.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the county paid dust abatement treatment plans as presented.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Mark. Do you want to take 5 minutes? Or? Yeah, right now. Yeah. Okay, let's go back now to our 11 o'clock presentation with STARS. And we've got Glenda and Jeff from STARS prepared to present to us. Welcome here, and we'll give you the floor. Go ahead. Glenda, are you leading on this? Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate this opportunity. So My name is Glenda Farnden.
Thank
Yes.
We want introductions maybe of council. Sorry, I'm still getting used to this routine, but we'll introduce ourselves if you're good with that. But you... Okay. Lynette, go ahead.
Hi, Lynette Kopp. I'm Division 3 Councillor, which is around Patricia Millicent area.
Hello, welcome to County Legal Council. I'm looking forward to hearing what you got to say. I'm Dan Short from Division 1 Rolling Hills.
Good morning, Dina Scandrup from Division 2, the Tilly area.
Morning, Glenda. Matt Fensky, County CAO.
Good morning again. Arno Dirksen. I'm Division 9 in the Gem area.
Good morning, I'm Kelly Chrisman. I'm from the west side of the county. Hi.
Hi, I'm Greg Screever, Lake Mill Resort and Castles area.
Good morning. Amanda Philpott, Duchess area.
Neil Johnson, councillor for the Brooks area.
We'll go back to Holly. Go ahead.
Holly Johnson, Scandia, Bow City, Rainier.
And just one other, Ellen Unra, who's stepped out for a minute, she'll be back in a minute. She represents the area around the village of Rosemary. And Ariana, go ahead.
Ariana Nielsen, Executive Assistant.
Okay, welcome. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, it's very nice. I know that you have a lot of new council members, so we're very excited to bring you your annual update. And we've had the pleasure of working with your council for previous councils for almost a decade now. So it's very much a partnership that is very important to us. So I'm Glenda Farnden. I'm the Senior Municipal Relations Liaison. So I work with all municipal councils across the entire province of Alberta, as well as into BC. And very pleased to have Jeff Morris with us as well. Jeff?
Morning all. I'm Jeff Morris. I work out of the Calgary Stars base. I'm a provincial director of operations here with us, and really excited to meet all of you. Too bad it has to be on virtual. We've had a great relationship with previous council members over the years, and look forward to meeting you all in person. Thank you.
Thank you. So will I be sharing my screen, or what would be best? Matt?
We have the presentation, Glenda, so if you wanted to read from it, or we can follow along here.
Okay, we'll do that then. So on the cover slide, we've included some previously presented information because I think it's very important that we provide a really solid overview for all of your new council members, as well as we want to bring you your annual update and some exciting new innovations that allow STARS to provide critical care anywhere. So the next slide, please. The COVID pandemic continues, and STARS remains under strict protocol to protect our operations. Our transport physicians continue to provide virtual critical care guidance, as well as assist healthcare professionals with airway management, ventilation, and resuscitation procedures. And we continue to see a rise in stress-related types of missions like heart attack, stroke, drug overdose, and approximately 1 in 5 missions are COVID-related. Next slide, please. The pandemic has impacted our revenue in all funding areas. The long-awaited HEMS review released by the Government of Alberta posed several recommendations regarding STARS, but for now, these remain only recommendations. They have indicated they will continue with consultations before any final decisions are made. So in the meantime, they have extended the 20% government funding for STARS this year, which is the same amount that we have received in previous years since 2010. While the demand for STARS is increasing, we must also continue to fundraise 80% of our crucial operational funds. So the pandemic has forced us to think outside the box and be proactive and identify operational and fundraising efficiencies, Sadly, we even had to downsize staff members in affected areas across all 6 bases in 3 provinces. The STARS lottery is our single largest funding source for STARS. And because of this, we went ahead with the lottery despite the pandemic. Albertans have continued to stand by our side as the 2021 lottery sold out. And a sold-out lottery guarantees $10 million net. Basically, it covers the cost of 1 base in Alberta each year. So the 2022 lottery is fast underway right now, and our 50-50 is the highest we've ever seen, $5.4 million. So our deadline is coming up soon on March 23rd. The calendar campaign has significantly decreased with the inability to travel and have a presence in rural communities. And so our urban municipal partners offered to help, and calendar sales were available at many municipal town offices across Alberta. It's an unforeseeable future for our mainstay events, and we cannot exist without community support. We're grateful to many rural communities who continue to host online 50-50s and raffles in place of their community fundraisers that cannot be held. And we also developed a multi-provincial radiothon. Jeff, could you please enlighten us on all the positive work that's happening behind the scenes in the STARS Emergency Link Center, and also a new pilot project? So we will go to the next slide, please.
Sure, thanks. Hopefully in front of you, you see what we have, the STARS Emergency Link Center. We're full of acronyms. We just call it the ELC. So the ELC is actually a 24/7 safety network with access to any and all available resources, whether it's ground, fixed wing, rotor wing, RCMP, search and rescue. Not that we dispatch those, but we work closely with those agencies. And just specific to the emergency response assets, their ELC actually takes over 31,000 emergency requests every year. The ELC is complete with integrated GIS mapping, no different than you would see from any 911 CAD system. We're fully integrated actually into these into the CAD systems with all EMS and with other outside PSAPs or primary service answering points, such as fire, bylaw, backcountry, Kananaskis areas. A lot of times we do coordination with search and rescue, military, RCMP, and for example, not only EMS, but even with hospital support. You probably may or may not have seen the new machine come in to you. We've actually flown 10 missions, I think, this last year, even to just Brooks alone. We've not just within Brooks, but within the county, we've also helped with over 100 additional emergency requests through our STARS transport physicians. And like Glenda was saying, moving a little bit more toward a piloting program with respect to virtual care and including our transport physicians. So the transport physicians are integral to our service. We have 24/7 access and availability to our transport physicians. They come out and they might assist with the central line, or sadly in another jurisdiction there was a field amputation that had to be done. So they're on the aircraft quite frequently, and they're also in the Emergency Link Center, piloting a project with our virtual care program. They're taking shifts in the ELC and providing support to rural hospitals and EMS services and the likes, using actually historically in the last 5 or 6 years, we've been kind of using our own devices, that we have with our phones, even something as simple as FaceTime. But now we're moving toward integrated virtual care platforms with true access and integration of real-time diagnostics, where we can actually see ultrasound, cardiac monitor, and other vitals that help support the transport of those systems. And I say that because there's things like, although you hear there was 31,000 requests into the ELC, we only transport about 1 out of every 5 requests. For example, if there's a bad accident on, the intersection of 876 in the Trans-Canada just north of Tilly, we would get those calls automatically from the EMS centers because they're called early automated dispatches into our ELC. And the transport physician is actually already part of that and listening to kind of what the call's going on. And more often than that, the suggestion would be for the EMS crew to get into the hospital, the nearest one obviously being like Brooks. But our transport physician already has the knowledge of, you know, what's going on and may be able to update the physician, the receiving physician at the hospital. And if it sounds like a bad patient, then the next step is they're working from a scene call into the IFT, interfacility transports. And that's where the virtual care technology comes in with airway management and support for those rural physicians on the IFT front as well, supporting hospital staff as well as EMS staff and inside the helicopter. Another thing I should mention, not overly known, but we're actually looking at doing piloting some wearables as well. So patients wearing these wearables in time of need, where you can transmit any and all vital signs that are on the patient without actually having to take a blood pressure or having to take a blood glucose or do some invasive action. So a lot of great stuff going on with that. And again, if I get back into the IFT or interfacility transport aspects, those are really important with having the physician on site and in the ELC, because they can actually support the sending physician to get back and take care of the patient, and then alert the receiving physician in a larger hospital to get ready to receive those patients. And then our transport physician is actually helping with the full transport modality, treatment centers, and helping get the patient packaged quickly and properly. So all of that's been a real big game changer with having that physician in the ELC and working toward that virtual technology and being on the forefront of patient care for better outcomes.
Thank you, Jeff. So that was covering slide number 5 on the pilot project. So we will move to slide 6, the 5-year mission overview within County of Newell, as well as the critical transfers in your area. We continue to see the mission rates increasing across the entire province. Overall, in the County of Newell area, including the critical transfers, you're seeing an average of about 32 missions flown per year, STARS missions. And with 2 more missions that just happened last week to the Brooks Hospital, it now brings us to 5 missions for this year. Everyone travels, commutes for work or recreation, and traveling into neighboring municipalities. So it's important to remember what's happening in your area, as well as at the hospitals of Bazzano and Brooks that serve your residents locally. Most often, a rural scene incident occurs and the patient is transported by either ground ambulance or even Halo to nearest hospital, and STARS is then called for critical intervention and transport to tertiary care. County of Newell is centrally located between Lethbridge and Medicine Hat hospitals. A point of interest, if we were to compare the same 5-year time frame of 2017 until current day, STARS flew 36 critical transfers from the Medicine Hat Hospital and 309 critical transfers from the Lethbridge Hospital. Your residents may also be included in incidents that have occurred in your neighboring municipalities, and those statistics would not be here in your shown in your local statistics. Emergencies do not always happen close to home. The value of our partnership is evident in Newell County residents having access to STARS in their daily travels, or even if they're traveling across Western Canada. The next slide, please. The Municipal Initiative Partnership is vital to the sustainability of our operations. The green areas that you see represent a municipal supporter, including into northeastern BC. Alberta municipalities recognize STARS as an essential service and a vital asset of the emergency protective services. Approximately 90% of Alberta rural and urban municipalities are regional partners, like the County of Newell and your regional neighbors. Majority of commitments are pledged at a $2 per capita up to $90 per capita, or an annual fixed dollar value that is included in their annual budgets. The 7 municipalities that you see outlined in the red boxes have received logo recognition, having reached more than $1 million in cumulative support for STARS over the years. And we thank you for your continued support that has helped us to generate $2 million per year in sustainable funding. The next slide, please. You know, it was a massive undertaking of a $138 million fleet campaign. It seemed almost impossible, and at the time also not knowing we were going to be amid a global pandemic. The federal, provincial, and municipal governments have all embraced the vision of a fleet of H-145s to serve us for decades to come. It's awe-inspiring as in the past week, we've experienced some significant changes from what is shown on this slide. And we have now reached the initial fundraising goal to complete the capital campaign for the 9 helicopters. Given the increasing mission volumes over the past 2 years, STARS decided last year that we would also purchase a 10th helicopter and also take advantage of the pricing offered through our initial contract with Airbus. So the anticipated proceeds from the sale of our retiring fleet will generate possibly up to $15 million, depending on market value and the rate of the US dollar. So these funds will be attributed towards the 10th helicopter and any residual costs. It is due to arrive late summer and will go into service later in this year. As you see in the photo, the H-145, it has a unique fenestron tail. It delivers increased maneuverability, decreased noise and vibration, and has significant safety features over the previously exposed tail rotor. This H-145 outperforms our previous BK-117s in speed, range, and fuel efficiency, and it's known for its power. Next slide on the new Airbus breakthrough technology. Jeff, if you could please enlighten us on some of the great features.
Sure, thanks, Glenda. I'd first like to actually say the embarkment of this new fleet transition was not because we wanted new helicopters, just because we wanted something new. It's truly because the classification of the BK-117 was deemed a legacy machine. So they stopped parts and manufacturing, I think, end of last year or early this year. So we're just a service that cannot wait for 2 or 3 weeks for parts to come in. That's just not a mantra we take. And I think with that, these new features like Glenda was talking about are just unbelievable. So the BK-117 is an Airbus product. The new H-145 is also an Airbus product. It's just the newer, upgraded, technologically advanced cousin to the BK-117. It's the same workhorse with 5-bladed system, like Glenda mentioned. Pit features advanced avionics, so it's a glass cockpit instead of all the rotor dials for the dials on that. It actually has autopilot and auto hover, which we laugh, we push on the pilots and say just because you're lazy. They're not. It's an actual added safety feature that's just a game changer with that. The new fenestron is enclosed, so of course that's a huge safety feature. We always continue to fly with 2 pilots aboard that. And the H-145, besides the significant safety features, it actually has reduced operational costs and reduced maintenance schedule and costs as well, except everybody like you and I are even. It's not fun at the gas pump even for the helicopters. So I can tell you that if you have not seen it, again, maybe a dozen times here in and around your area, the 145 has been servicing your whole area and from the Calgary base for the last near 18 months. It's a great machine. It flies unbelievable with that 5-bladed system. It has a lot more stability for patient care, which is great. And we should have full operational H-145s in all of Alberta here by summer. Right now, the newest one just got sent to Grand Prairie yesterday. I think they started doing familiarization flights and getting used to that. And then the next and last one will go into Edmonton. So everybody's pretty excited about that. Not just the machine itself, but with the added features, not from into the back of the cab, not just the cockpit wise, is they actually have integrated Wi-Fi. So communication advancements to support that virtual care. integrated Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and of course satellite connectivity, which we've had before. But those are just big game changers when we talk about that point in time patient vital, patient care that can actually get back to transport physicians and even to specialists in other hospitals. I also like to add that besides the safety features themselves, we also have physicians on the aircraft. Not only our transport physicians, but if you didn't know, we work closely. We have programs with the Cummings School of Medicine out of the U of C with residents that come through 1 month at a time. And we have a fellowship program where there's physician on the aircraft 6 months of the year. So notably, if you see 3 people coming out of the aircraft, it's a critical care nurse and paramedic and a physician. So that's been a wonderful program that we have in relation with U of C as well. So I'll just add that as another safety feature. Outside of those safety features, though, if you didn't know, for new council members, we're certified in ultrasound technology. So that's a big diagnostic tool for patients to help with differential diagnoses. We carry a couple units of blood, so help with those trauma patients. Like Glenda mentioned before, we have a sophisticated ventilator on board with critical care patient managements. And in addition, of course, all of our air medical crew have 120 hours plus every single year. And of note, we just went through another, I think our 6th or 7th cycle, 3-year period for CAMES accreditation that we were just approved for again here just a couple weeks ago. So it's a Commission on Air Medical Transport Systems and internationally recognized accreditation certification. So all of that, obviously just bringing the highest level of critical care available in any transport system that we have available in Alberta, let alone Western Canada and all of Canada itself. So appreciate that. And I welcome any questions at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Jeff. So the final slide, STARS was born out of necessity. We've been serving Albertans since 1985 with more than 45,000 missions flown and at no cost to our patients. We thank you, County of Newell, for your life-saving partnership with STARS since 1992. Thank you for your continued support of $2 per capita on a standing motion, which provides for STARS as a line item in your annual budgets. More importantly, these are challenging times and the demand for STARS continues to increase, and we rely on steadfast partners like you. Also like to mention that we would like to thank TELUS. TELUS has donated a special documentary to celebrate 15 years of the STARS Grand Prairie base serving northern residents. The County of Newell and area is representative of Alberta's northern region with vast remote areas and limited resources available. And so this documentary also features astounding VIP stories. And if you're interested, you may Google STARS Grand Prairie YouTube to view it, or it will also be airing on TELUS Optic TV beginning on April 1st. In closing, a life is saved every day, and partnerships are what make this possible. You are STARS' reason for being, and we thank you very much for your continued dedication and support.
Thank you for that presentation, and we'll take questions at this point. Dan Short, go ahead, please.
Earlier in our council meeting, we discussed an RMA resolution to try to get the provincial government to act on the recommendations of the HEMS review. Just from what you were saying, it sounds like you'd like for us to try to press them into following some of them recommendations. Would that be accurate or no?
Jeff?
I would say, as I know that the recommendations are kind of on hold, the government itself through the ministry has actually put together several committees throughout EMS looking at different service planning. They've formed committees on ground ambulance, dispatch, air ambulance. So we're a little bit on hold right now. Of course, we are a stakeholder, no different than any other emergency services provider. So as I know, those committees will carry on through June or July, and I think have to have documentation into the ministry for some type of communication, hopefully in late fall.
Thank you. Any other questions from council members? Neil, please. Go ahead. Neil Johnson.
Could you just describe the relationship between STARS and HALO, how they work together, how they interact?
Yeah, sure. HALO for certain, it's not indifferent. Then we work with there's a partner in the north out of Fort Mac. There's one out of Northeast. There's out of Kananaskis with our search and rescue, Alpine. We actually dispatch HALO, if you didn't know, through the Emergency Link Center. So they're integral when it comes to emergency services, particularly in that southeast region. If there's a bad accident, say just outside of Medicine Hat, I wouldn't want my family waiting roadside. I'd want somebody to be able to come and get me. So where it's inaccessible to ambulance, or the ambulances aren't available to get to the hospital quickly with the patient within about a 30-minute window, then that would activate HALO, and the Link Center would then activate HALO just as far as the response and dispatching them. So we dispatch them. We work with them where we can, because outside of dispatching, HALO is its own entity, and they've worked with AHS to then pick up a paramedic off the ambulance to then put on a HALO helicopter to support patient care in those inaccessible areas and get them back to the hospital.
Okay, thank you. Holly Johnson has another question, please. Go ahead, Holly.
Good morning. What percentage of the budget is spent on administration with STARS?
Well, currently we're at 12% for administration costs. We're very proud of the fact that we continue to strive in keeping that in check. And by CRA allowances, they allow up to 35%.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, go ahead.
I was just wondering, with the COVID regulations all being dropped, are you planning a full slate of fundraising events this year then?
We are striving towards re-engaging some of our very significant events. So we're looking forward to the PSAC Gala once again, which is our largest signature event that we have. We're slowly, currently we are still under strict protocol, and so we are still working from home and just slowly integrating back into having people at the base in order to protect our operations. So as we are starting to move ahead, we have been contacted by a lot of different communities that want to re-engage and actually be able to host their community events again. So we're slowly looking into, participating in those areas as well.
Okay, thank you. I think that exhausts our questions from this end this morning. Again, Glenda and Jeff, thank you for your presentation, and we appreciate the work that STARS does across the province and for us, our area specifically in southeastern Alberta. And thank you for your presentation this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you in person at the next update and working very closely with your council for many years.
That's mutual. Thank you. Bye now. Okay, Council, it is now 11:30, and we will go to our public hearing. Do we need a motion for that? We need a motion to move into a public hearing. Ellen, please, all in favor that we move to a public hearing? That's carried. Maria, welcome this morning. If you'll give us the background with regard to the road closure that's up for discussion today, please.
Thank you. This is a road closure in the west half of 82318, which is in Division 9, approximately 16 kilometers north of Bazano. The purpose for the closure is the applicant is currently working with the NRCB to create a chicken barn, an increase to the amount of birds that they have. And as part of that, they want to incorporate a free-range roaming pen for these chickens, and the best location for that does incorporate part of this road allowance. So the approval to proceed was granted by council on February 10th. It was circulated to, well, the adjacent landowners, which is actually only this applicant who owns all the lands surrounding this road, as well as the required referral agencies. We did hear back from Fortis and ATCO Gas, and they had no concerns. And TELUS just came in this week with a agreement for them to allow them to construct and maintain the telephone and telecommunications line within this road allowance. So that will then be sent to the Minister of Transportation for approval should Council grant first reading to this, this road closure.
Thank you, Maria. Are there any questions? That's a clear view?
Newell, Colony,
okay.
pardon me.
Thank you. Yeah. Any questions from anyone? Yeah, I think this is pretty straightforward. Is there a recommendation? Basically, we have options. Well, we've moved already. Go ahead, Kelly.
Just to help you out, I think we move out of council, or out of public hearing
for
the motion.
Yeah, that's right.
So if there are no questions, then I would make that motion to move
out of the public hearing? Mm-hmm. Okay. All in favor that we move out of the public hearing, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. That was quick and straightforward. You've got some more comments?
Well, if it's okay with council, then could we go to second reading now that we're out of the public, or pardon me, first reading now that we're out of the public hearing?
Right, yes.
Thank you.
That's where we'll move to. Ellen, go ahead. Ellen moves first reading. All in favor, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you. Thank you. Pardon. Yeah. Thanks, Maria.
Too good to be true, probably is.
Yeah. Go to 10.3. Yeah, okay. Let's move to item number 10.3, the joint meeting with Grasslands School Division. Ariana, you've got information for us on that?
I do. So Grasslands has selected May 19th for the meeting. They will host it at their office. It's going to start around 5 with dinner. Exact details will be confirmed closer to the meeting. They've requested the number of attendees, so I'll send out a meeting invite so it's in all of your calendars. They're also looking for agenda items. The meeting's not until May 19th, so you don't have to pick them all now. I was going to put this back on the April 21st agenda for a final agenda, if that's okay. So if you have some now, great. We'll start a list.
That sounds good. Thank you, Ariana. Are there anything that any council members have at this point to put on the agenda? Holly, please.
Ag education.
Okay. Anything else? Go ahead, Holly.
Well, I think we should bring up racism.
Okay, thank you. There's no pressure to complete this list today. As Ariana indicated, we'll revisit this closer to the meeting, but it's good information, and we'll go on our calendars and our agenda for the future then. Thank you. No decisions to make here on this one. Then let's go to item 10.4, rural municipalities member visiting schedules. Ariana, can you brief us on that as well, please?
Yes, there's actually a late-breaking update to this. They sent me an email this morning. April 4th is no longer available, so we can do May 5th. May 5th or May 5th. They said they could start earlier if you want to proceed with the tour, and lunch would be involved.
Sorry, April the 4th is no longer available, so it moves to May the 5th? Right. Okay.
That's right.
Holly, please, you've got a...
So on that day, is there an option to, okay, I don't know much about county meetings yet, to shorten the meeting so that only critical stuff in the meeting ends at 12, so we have the meeting, or do we have that flexibility or not?
Matt, maybe you can...
Yeah, certainly, if there is anything that is coming forward for addition to the agenda, if it's not urgent, we can defer some of those things for sure. Yeah.
Okay. What else do we need to talk about? We've got details of the tour, or we've got a little time for that yet too, right?
Yeah, details for the tour, if we want to do a tour. I mean, 2 hours or 3 hours gets chewed up pretty quick when you're driving around. So there might be things in close proximity to the county facility. I think the county facility in its own right is worthy of a little bit of walking around with Gerald and Paul. So, but administration is open to ideas from council on it, and if you want administration to get creative, we're happy to be creative as well.
Again, we've got a little time to decide that, so there's no pressure to, we can further discuss on that as we go along, or if there's ideas, I think. Anything? Oh, Ariana?
Just for clarification, they wanted the morning, so we would have the MPC council in the afternoon, or, okay.
We'd give them the morning, right? That can work. Yeah, that can work for us, I'm sure.
I missed that.
Yeah, okay. Anything else we need to decide relative to this right now, Ariana? I think we're good, eh?
Yes, I'll just confirm we'll take that time, and then we'll figure out details later.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. We are moving with lightning speed today. That's good to see. I shouldn't mention anything till we get closer to the end, though. So it's just a current observation. That's good. Requests for functions of council. Item number 10.5. Are there any requests for Amanda, please?
Yes. The Geek Week. Pardon me. The Geek Week that went from February 28th to March 4th, and the EID AGM this past week.
Okay. Kelly, please.
So in the past, those were attended on our own, so it would be a change in function, but it's up to council. Council has attended EID as a neighbor or a member of the EID at their will, and Geek Week is for our personal gain as well as our professional gain. So that's my 2 cents worth. And typically we approve before we do it, not afterwards either. So that's another thing to consider, because now it's personal, right?
Okay, any further comments? Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think any of us would have been at the EID AGM if we weren't county councillors. And I think when you represent the county and go to gather information and do your PR, you should be paid by the county.
Okay, that's...
Same with the Geek Week.
Okay, I'm open to a motion. Do you want to make a motion, Amanda, or anyone with regard to how we approach this, please?
Okay, I would make a motion that we include Geek Week and EID AGM into our payment councils.
Retroactively, basically.
Yes.
And I guess that would also assume that it would be based on individual application for activity. Each councillor will still have their own choice whether or not they take advantage of that or not, right? Because it's passed, and it's also with regard at least to the EID, we have varying relationships with what happens at the EID, so that's a personal choice too. But that's good. We have a motion on the floor. Neil and then Ellen, please.
Yeah, that would apply to, like, the town of Brooks will have their annual general meeting, or anywhere where we have to interact with the other municipalities. I think it's good to be there, and if all 10 of us show up, power to us.
Okay, thank you. Ellen?
Just to clarify about Geek Week, there was just some courses given here either by long distance, if you will, from home, or you could come here to the office. And one was security, about the emails and using all your appliances for IT. And the other one was a personal session on leisure fish and how to use it. Mm-hmm. Very informative, actually.
Well, it's good. I know at least one of the councillors missed Geek Week and probably will pay for just personally be at a deficit in some areas for a long time, I think. But that's good. Okay, we have a motion on the floor with regard to Geek Week and the EID. All in favor that we include those as functions of council, please indicate. Okay, I wasn't. Were we counted? Yeah. Good. Okay, we're opposed. Same sign. Okay, I think that's defeated. Okay. Thank you.
Arno?
Oh, Holly, go ahead, please.
Kind of a clarification. So we have PEP meetings quarterly, and as an offshoot of the PEP meeting, a member has requested to have another meeting with because PEP includes a lot of areas, Foremost and Hannah and all over the place, or Consort, I forget exactly. So they've asked for another meeting, which would be like Rosemary, Bazzano, the county, the city, kind of talk about PEP in a smaller arena. Is that a function of council, or is that a normal offshoot off of PEP? I just wasn't sure what to call that. If I need to ask permission to go for that as a function of council, or it's already included in PEP, I can get some clarification.
Matt, I suppose the ultimate decision rests with council, but what's been the pattern in the past, or anyone else who's been involved with council previously? Kelly or Ellen?
I like the first line, that it will be up to council, but I think that the PEP board meetings proper would fall under the board, and then if there's extra work, like subcommittee stuff, you'd probably want to come and get approval as a function of council, is how I'd kind of look at it, and it keeps your nose clean, and yeah, right.
Okay. So is there something to discuss there, Holly?
Could I have approval to attend a meeting? I don't know, Dan, you're going to go as well? On March 28th, the 2-hour meeting in Dutchess for PEP, local PEP.
Okay. Ellen?
I'll make that motion to make it a function of council.
Right, okay. All in favor, please indicate. Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Thank you. Any other functions of council?
Recycling council.
Oh, yeah, that's item number 10.5.1, 2022 Recycling Council of Alberta Circular Economy Conference, October 19th to the 21st. Matt,
yeah, so I'll just speak to this. These invitations come, it seems kind of like nonstop. There's always something that you could potentially attend. I think The applicable councillor this would pertain to would be the one who sits on Newell Recycling, which would be our friend Councillor Johnson over there. So that's why this is on there, to see if there's any interest in attending that and consideration as a function of council.
Yeah, it's just one of these things that comes up, I guess, but I don't know, it's all the way to Jasper. I don't feel like going up there by myself. If somebody else wants to come along, that would be good, or not go at all. Doesn't matter to me.
If council wishes, it's in my division also, so if Neil and I go up together, throw ideas out there with respect to this conference, that would be fine too.
Could we get a cost estimate for two people going then? If it's a little expensive by going to Jasper.
Sometimes our committees cover the cost of conferences, so I'm wondering if NRSC sees value in this conference. NRSW. Get the right.
By the looks of their budget, I don't know for sure, but I highly doubt it. They're pretty hand-to-mouth.
Okay, we've got a request for a cost estimate, which this is always in our future. We can deal with this at the next meeting if staff can come back with some estimates on that, and we can reconsider at that point, is what I would suggest. Dan, please, go ahead.
Just one quick question. I understand the Hamlet Advisory Boards, that is included in our base, right? That's not an extra thing. Okay, I've been doing it right then.
Okay, anything else to discuss relative to functions of council? Seeing none, we can move on. We're up to 11.3, right? Yeah. 11.3. Mr. Mark Harbert, please. Welcome back into our meeting.
You guys are rocking it this morning. What's going on here?
Somebody already said that, yeah. That's
March, spring fever, or what? Okay, well, first I'm going to start off by apologizing for comment earlier on the former matter of dust abatement. Municipal Affairs no longer lists our hamlets on their website or anything. They used to. They absolutely used to. I know you've all been educated in the hierarchy of planning documents. Hamlets are identified in our MDP. So just so you're aware, I'll stick that as a clarification to how we talked about it formerly. Okay, on to the item. Kinbrook Connection Pathway Partnership, County Pathway, Professional Services Award. So the RFD is in front of council. We advertised January 18th, 2022. And we closed the procurement period on Tuesday, February 22nd at 2 p.m. We had a total of 8 individual proponents submitting proposals, and of that, the CAO and myself participated in the review process and evaluation. You can see that price was awarded at 30%, previous experience on similar projects, and the implementation plan at 40%, and references at 30%. From that evaluation, you can see that McElhaney was the leading evaluation that come out on top there, and our second and third, surprisingly, were a tie. And so with that, cost and funding, well, we've already got approval through grant funding and whatnot for the first 2.4 kilometers of the county pathway, and County Council has already dedicated or committed funding to the Kinbrook connection pathway to the amount of $700,000 or up to at least, and then the city's commitment as well. So that will for sure get us going on the engineering and get us well on our way there. So a couple of options there that obviously council awards to the top evaluated firm, which is McElhaney, or that council rejects all proposals. And I would encourage you not to reject all proposals, because there's only one thing to do after that, and that's called restart the process in a whole new manner, which would probably be breaking the projects apart and delaying and consuming more of my time, and probably costing us more as well, because larger projects tend to bring lower costs, and that is generally the same thing that we see when we get to the construction side of things. So if there are any questions of council, I would gladly, but there is a recommendation suggested for you.
Thank you. We'll go to questions, and then if someone is prepared to make a recommendation or a motion, we will entertain that as well. Dan, first we'll take questions, please.
Usually it's something like this, you can kind of toss away the outliers, the really highs, the really lows, because there's usually something wrong. So I'm just curious as to what area that they were so improved upon that gave them a 11% increase on the second and third place.
Experience, and particularly experience in highly sensitive landscapes, which include Fernie, BC, Terrace, BC, Waterton National Park, Kananaskis Country, and the list goes on and on. Amazing references, like nothing negative to say whatsoever, specifically about the project manager in this regard. Many comments on McElhaney. This is like their niche market is pathways, and that was very good to hear from. They provided 5 references, and I was able to hear that out of all 4 that I was able to contact, and the 5th I just kind of felt the rest gave me 3 references, and I didn't need to contact a 5th to take their time or my time further. I can also advise that the top 3, not as evaluated here in the standings, but the top 3 in lowest pricing were only separated by $3,550. So it was, this is why if it was only on price, there'd be a different outcome. If you want to ensure the best product for the end user, you want to get after the experience, and then you want the references to confirm that. So price is always key, but it should not always be the driving factor as to who we look to award things to. And I don't think I have much more to say. I think if council supports this, I'm really interested in working with McElhaney, because I don't have any former experience with them.
Okay, I think Matt had a comment, and then we'll go to a further question. Is that right?
Yeah, I think just in terms of the evaluation criteria, not focusing solely on price, it's really interesting going through these different proposals, the level of different assumptions that the various providers put in. So, you might be the lowest price, but you've baked in a whole lot of assumptions about the things that you haven't included within the scope of your pricing, which may raise their heads. Historical resource impact assessment, wetlands, we're not going to be impacting any wetlands, and we know we're headed towards wetlands, right? So that was the thing that stood out to me, is just the difference in the assumptions that different providers were making.
Thank you. Ellen, you have a question?
Yeah, just curious, what was McElhaney's proposal for price? What was their final tender?
The price, and this is for their engineering services. There's always things that may arise, which, as Matt alluded to, we evaluated against everybody else. They came in at $217,452, and that was only $990 above the lowest.
And one more quick question. Where are they located out of?
Calgary.
Okay. Jeff, please.
Great, that's okay. I've been called Jeff a lot. Here, I'll shoot, it doesn't have my name. Mr. G. Sorry, Greg. It's Jeff with a G. Yeah. I'm just kidding. That's no big deal. I'd like to move that we offer, that we award the professional services to McElhaney Limited.
Thanks, Greg. Mark, please.
Just a further comment to Councillor Unruh's question about price. What things will come down to through the process is they have a unit price schedule set by their employees that will be involved in this and any subs. Those are the unit rates that will be used in the invoicing of things. And those will be identified in the contract, so they can't be adjusted afterwards.
Thanks, Mark. Question, Lynette, please.
I guess I'm just looking for a little bit of clarification how this works. Like, we have asked them to tell us how much, but we had also said that the money needs to come from their fundraising and stuff. Like, we haven't seen that money yet. We're going through all of this just in the hopes of them having it, or has there been money secured? I guess I'm just wanting to know how this process all goes.
Okay, good question. Thanks. Go ahead, Mark.
To date, I believe Joint Services Committee was updated. I could be wrong, but I believe there's about $86,000 worth of commitments put forward from the public. We have a number of grant opportunities that are being pursued on all levels between the city ourselves. I still have a memorandum of understanding to draft between ourselves, the city, and bring the EID into that discussion. And really with where we're at with both City Council and County Council's commitment so far, it more than covers the engineering to put the plan in place that when the funding is available, then it can proceed. And that was disclosed in the RFP process that the 10 kilometers of the Kinbrook Connection Pathway Partnership may not be proceeding. So we are not locked in, but nonetheless, we will have all of the design done, because hopefully we can connect the county pathway and the Kinbrook Connection Pathway in one tendered contract for construction, which should bring additional savings to both projects. So trying to be wise in how we do this approach, and that is based on our experience. We did the similar thing when we tendered out Highway 873, the 535, and the 876 project for the engineering services. We had all of that locked in to get the design, and the construction came out in two different phases of things.
Thanks, Mark. You had some more comments? Are you covered? Okay. Greg, please.
Yeah, just to expand on what Mark said. Joint Services, it was reported, around $83,500, $86,000 from mostly from the public service club, from the service clubs in the area, Kiwanis, those and the like. Now there's also a grant. There's two grants that are outstanding right now. One the county has put through to the provincial government of $750,000. And then the Brooks City has also put an application into a federal grant, and it's a environmental grant. So hopefully we can get some traction off of that, it being a footpath and a cycle path. And it's also $750,000. So $1.5 million applications and grants are out there right now.
Okay, thank you. Holly, another question?
Is the cost for the engineering where you thought it would be in your budgeting? Are we on track?
From my original estimate as to what I thought both pathways should be, it is very reasonable. You'll generally find engineering 7 to 10%, depending on the project, things you come across. Matt talked about historical resources, impact assessments, wildlife, those sorts of things. Those aren't cheap. They add up very quickly. But yes, they're in that 7 to 10% range, depending on what the design and our pathway committee kind of gets going with for what kind of nodes or amenities are to be provided along the pathway, if any at all.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Are we ready? Oh, Amanda, please.
Who's responsible for the maintenance of the pathway at the end?
You're probably looking at me. I think that's been discussed amongst the organizations, that it naturally falls within the county annual, and that's probably where it'll be until we truly get through the full extent of the memorandum of understanding. We might have other commitments, but I'm guessing it'll fall to us.
Okay, thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion that we proceed with the recommendation as it's been presented, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. It is 5 after 12. We're getting awfully close to the end of our agenda, if I'm reading this right. What's council's wish? You want to break for lunch? Come back, or you want to finish up before? Oh, we have in camera at the end too. So. But we'll break for lunch and that's correct. I would agree. We're still close, but we're still doing good.